Okay, a couple of logistics. First off, I'm Bob Carlton, and my colleagues Allison and Delara are so excited to join you this evening to talk about a topic that we love talking about. And that topic is thriving in this year's Texas A&M college admissions process. A little bit about College MatchPoint. We are, I think, the only educational consulting practice in the company that was founded by two Aggies. Lisa and I are both class of 1985. And I won't claim that Allison and Delara are Aggies, but they sure have worked with lots of Aggies. Our team has worked with students who are dreaming of Aggie land for 15 years. Most of them weren't auto admit. They weren't in that top 10% that are auto admitted to A&M, and many of them applied to competitive majors like business and engineering. And to be really frank, while our company is based in Central Texas and we have a lot of students who apply and are admitted to that school here in Austin, we are so proud of the Aggies that we've worked with. They are thriving in Aggie land and they are making the most of their experience at that wonderful school. We are not in the business of marketing or even promoting schools, but as an Aggie, I hope you'll permit me to point out that A&M is the #1 school in the United States for CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. It also is just an incredible value for students, and it's a happy school for students. 94% of the students who are freshmen in Aggie land return for their second year. It is also increasingly a thriving research university. It was the first college in the United States to surpass $1 billion in research grants. A snapshot of this past year's admission season. Texas A&M University saw a pop in applications, a historic number of undergraduate applications, thanks in large part to the fact that last year was the first year that Texas A&M University went to the Common App, as did their siblings here in Austin. About 40% of their incoming class is out of the top 10% auto admit. They do really, really well with their holistic review, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And then A&M has a very articulated alternative path, very clear on what gateways might look like, what blend team might look like. And I think to their credit, A&M, even on a national level, has been really actively focused on attracting and supporting first-gen students who want to be Aggies. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, but I want to give you a couple of sort of housekeeping notes. This webinar will be recorded, and we will share the recording of this webinar, the presentation materials here, and our guide to Texas A&M tomorrow morning. We ask you that as we go through the presentation, if you have questions, use the Q&A box so we can keep track and make sure. If it's a very student-specific question, we may not be able to answer it. If it's a more universal question, we'll probably answer it in the QA box, but occasionally the presenter will say, hey, Bob, is there a question that comes up? And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleagues, Delara and Allison, who we're just so grateful to have with us on the webinar this evening.
Hello, everybody. So glad to have you. At Texas A&M, one of the largest public universities, there are over 100 degree programs across 10 undergraduate colleges and schools, and more majors every year. Texas A&M really listens to its student base about what they are wanting in prospective students. And these are just a few of the new majors. One of them is brand new, but some of the new majors include architectural engineering, you can see, and there's all kinds of specializations in engineering. In addition, there are 3 different tracks of neuroscience and a brand new degree, undergraduate degree in hospitality, hotel management, and tourism that has just been released. So that's super exciting. Bob, next slide, please. When students are applying to Texas A&M, there's a couple, like Bob mentioned, there's lots of different pathways. The top 10% of students, so students who rank in the top 10% of their graduating class, are considered auto admit students. However, if you are one of those students, one of the things they do require is that you send them an official transcript by December 1 in order to confirm that. The majority of the students we work with, however, are not auto-admit students to Texas A&M, and those students undergo a holistic review process. And what that means is every piece of that application is evaluated in order to evaluate the student. So that means they take all aspects of the student's application into account, including on that transcript, not just your grades, although great grades are wonderful, as we like to say. You can't run from your grades. So great grades are helpful, but they also look at the level of rigor of the classes that you've chosen to take, especially if they relate to your major. And so looking at where you chose to challenge yourself with either an AP course or an honors course, or at schools where it was available, an IB course, they take that into account as well. A&M is also accepts test scores. It also test optional, but they do prefer those numerical. Looking at the numerical aspects of the application is something that A&M does a little more than, say, a school like A&M. The grades and the test scores at A&M are pretty important. In addition, though, looking at, especially if you're in one of those kind of top 5 competitive majors, business, engineering, nursing, for those majors, we're really looking at, has the student demonstrated an ability to explore this major? Do they have what we call fit to major in that resume? So for a student applying to business, have they done any shadowing? Did they do an internship? Maybe a summer program? That's something that would really assist a student in that holistic review for the business school, for example. And then those essays, the personal statement and the 2 supplemental essays, they are important. However, sometimes we have students that say, how did I got into UT but not A&M? And UT might spend a little bit more time and give a little bit more weight to those essays than A&M does. A&M tends to lean a little bit more on the numerics of the application. However, every piece helps in this process. Delara, anything to add?
I would say, especially for any younger students who might be on this webinar, I encourage y'all to really put that focus on your grades and taking advantage of rigorous courses where you can, where you feel like you can tackle them. That's really the biggest difference you can make in trying to become an Aggie at this point in the game. And that's all I got, Allison.
And in addition, demonstrated interest, which is really showing Texas A&M that you are interested in Texas A&M, is also a valuable piece of the application. Whether it's attending an official tour of A&M, visiting, or virtually, there's also a lot of other ways that A&M, there's a lot of different events that A&M offers kind of throughout the year for students to participate in. And all of those are also part of that holistic review.
All right. So as many of you might know, A&M practices rolling admissions, but it's kind of rolling admissions with a twist. I'll start with the auto 10% applicants who are applying to A&M. Typically, y'all will apply to A&M and you'll get your admissions decision in a matter of weeks once they receive your transcript and can confirm your rank. For students who are undergoing holistic review, rolling admissions works a little bit differently. Majors at A&M fill up quickly. They evaluate applicants and place them into the majors that they think they'll be a fit for as applications come in. So take advantage of this rolling admissions to really make sure you get your application in as early as you can. The Texas A&M application opened on August 1st. I've had many students and families I've been working with clamoring to get their A&M application out the door, but I caution you, getting an application early, getting your application in early is not better than turning in a sloppy application. So make sure you really take the time to perfect that application, cross your T's, dot your I's. Once you submit it, you can't get it back. So it's imperative that you really take time to really carefully craft your application. If your student is interested in, especially for business, if they're interested in studying business, the A&M Mays School of Business has very limited seats, so they fill up quickly. If you are interested in being a business major, I would shoot to get that application in no later than the end of the month. So if you haven't gotten started on it yet, now's the time to get cracking.
And for engineering, engineering has a slightly different October 15th early action deadline. Doesn't mean you have to wait till then, but definitely good to know that is the deadline for engineering, as there is an additional essay that students applying to engineering must write. All right, talking about testing. Texas A&M is a test optional school. They do not require that students submit scores. This is really something to consider depending on kind of where your score falls and kind of the major you are applying to, but they really encourage students who have test scores to send them, and they work hard not to disadvantage students who provide them. Test scores are sent through the testing agencies. So you took the ACT, you go to the ACT website and send your scores. If you took the SAT, go to the SAT website to send your scores. You don't need to have taken the writing section. And a good thing to remember is that it takes a few weeks for those scores to get, to actually make it from the testing agency to the university. So it's a good idea, if you're done testing and you're happy with your score, to go ahead and get those scores out the door so they have time to arrive. Now, some students are considering, like, well, should I take it again? Is it worth it for me to take it again? Really the consideration here is thinking about your current score and your ability to not just take the test, but prepare for the test. Remembering, of course, that those grades in those fall classes can also still come into play. So if going after that, a couple more points on that ACT means you're gonna tank your English class, maybe think twice. However, depending on the major, it can also be a factor. So those highly competitive majors, business, engineering, computer science, it may make sense to go ahead and go after a higher test score for those highly competitive majors.
All right, speaking of majors, so like many of the Texas public universities, like UT Austin, Texas A&M is a major focused school. There's no getting around it. There isn't really a lot of wiggle room if you're interested in applying as an undecided applicant, which is unfortunate, but that's just kind of how A&M operates. Now, the benefit of this, if you can believe it, is that unlike UT, A&M actually offers a lot of flexibility in terms of changing majors once you're already on campus. So there are a couple caveats. It's a little difficult to transfer into engineering or nursing or business, but most of the other majors are pretty fair game, and you can work with your counselor on campus to kind of figure out a major once you're already admitted. As for engineering, engineering is the largest major at Texas A&M. A third of the student body is an engineering student, and engineering has its own admissions process separate from the rest of the university. So you apply to general engineering as a first-year applicant. And this is kind of an umbrella for all of the engineering subspecialties as well as computer science. And you declare your engineering specialty in your second year by undergoing a process called entry to a major, ETAM, E-T-A-M. It requires you to have a certain GPA in order to be eligible to declare your major in your engineering specialty of choice. But as you're applying to A&M, you're applying to general engineering regardless of which engineering or computer science major you're most interested in. Engineering is the only major at A&M that has an October 15th deadline. Everything else is kind of first come, first serve until December. And so make sure that you keep that deadline in mind. It also requires filling out an engineering supplemental essay. So engineers are the lucky few who have to write a third additional essay for A&M. But I want you all to really consider this as an opportunity to really share with admissions what it is that sparks your interest about this subject. What was it that first got you interested in building things or in coding or in data science or things of that nature? And what different paths have you explored to kind of prepare you to study in these fields? And what is it about A&M in particular that really draws you to their School of Engineering? It's a pretty state-of-the-art School of Engineering. They have all sorts of hands-on facilities and experiential learning opportunities for their students. So really do some research as you're writing that engineering supplement. It might, spark some additional inspiration. Next slide. All right, so you may have noticed a common theme throughout this webinar already, but majors are very space limited at A&M, with the three most competitive majors being the Mays School of Business. It really fills up quite quickly. So, act quick if you're interested in studying business at A&M. The College of Nursing is another one. A&M conducts their nursing program as a pre-nursing major, and they really have, somewhere around 20 to 30 slots for those students. So regardless of the massive size of A&M, the nursing college is actually quite small and intimate. And lastly, the architecture major is another one that takes, just has fewer seats than, demand for that major because of its very hands-on nature, the rigors of kind of studio coursework and those kinds of things. So students applying to these majors, make sure you apply early, make sure you have all of your ducks in a row. And for younger students who are considering these majors, make sure you would keep those grades up, you explore rigor as you can handle it, and you really consider, taking on experiences outside of the classroom that can kind of expose you to these subjects so that you can make a better case for yourself to study these majors in your application. All right. So even though there's a couple impacted majors at A&M, there are over 130 different majors to pick from. And it is important that you pick one in your application. I'm just going to quickly kind of go over a few of my favorites. They have a nationally ranked visualization program at A&M. Their visualization major is kind of a hybrid program that's a little bit of a blend of animation, graphic design, and game design. It's also pretty heavily recruited by Pixar, if you can believe it or not. They come all the way out to College Station to take their pick of visualization majors to bring back with them to LA. I'm really attracted to the food science and technology major. And A&M also has one of the best known and most prestigious meteorology majors in the country. Who would have known? And one last thing I just want to impart to y'all is that A&M has recently really revamped their career services portion of their website, which is where you can really dig into all of their major offerings. And if you haven't yet, I really encourage y'all to take a look, because there are some hidden gems in there that you may not have, had the chance to explore had you not really done that deep dive. So, one of the ways to really set yourself apart as an applicant is to really look beyond those, top 3 or top 5 most popular majors, and you might just be lucky enough to find something that really sparks your interest.
All right, so honors programs at A&M, in addition to all the 130 different majors, there are also honors programs at the university, college, and departmental levels. Some of the honors programs require a separate application. Others you're reviewed for simply by submitting your application. There is a box in your application that says, are you interested in honors programs? If you think you might be, go ahead and check that box. Doesn't require you to do anything, but it does give you the option to consider that. And so if you even think you might be a little bit interested in honors programs, it's important to check that box. Even if you aren't enrolled in an honors program at A&M, students who are in the top 10% of their high school class and have an SAT of at least 1360 can actually still enroll in honors courses. So if that's something, once you get to A&M, that you're interested in, you can definitely look more into that. You can absolutely find a way to take rigorous classes at A&M. In addition, the University Honors Program includes kind of the opportunity to get the small school experience within that super large campus environment. So you can, where you have smaller classes, which gives you access to professors and professor relationships and potentially research opportunities. Texas A&M there's tons of research going on at A&M. If you're in the University Honors Program, get to know a professor, you might have access to a research opportunity, in addition to a smaller cohort of students and rigorous coursework. University Honors Program goes across many disciplines. All right, so if you are interested in the honors program, you can definitely schedule an appointment with an honors advisor. There's also great information. The first thing to do, though, is prepare your application well, check that honors program box, and then kind of take it from there. The business honors program is also a really amazing opportunity at A&M, and that is a program where you will be notified if you are eligible. With this one, you earn not only a Bachelor of Business Administration, but business honors students also tend to pursue a second business major. It's a highly competitive program. And as your application is reviewed, the school will let you know if you are eligible and are being reviewed for the business honors program. In some cases, they will reach out to you for an interview for this if you are being considered. It's highly competitive. Students considered for this program are in the top 25% of their class. And if you are interested in this, it's worth recommended to submit a test score and at least one letter of recommendation.
And just to give you an idea of the level of competitiveness of this program, it's usually reserved for about 60 students every year.
Out of, what, 44,000 at A&M? So you can tell, small group. And there are additionally, for students in the honors programs, other events, excursions, and things like that that are part of that program.
All right, time to talk about my favorite thing, college essays. So now that A&M is officially on the Common App, makes it a little bit easier to apply. It makes it a little bit easier to get those essays organized. You will be submitting a personal statement to A&M. The prompt is asking about your high school experiences and the challenges and opportunities that you may have experienced. When I advise students about what to think about sharing about themselves in that personal statement, I like to remind them about the role the essay, the personal statement plays in the entire review of their application. So as I said, A&M's on the Common App. When their admissions team starts reviewing your application, they are looking at that digital file that says the name Allison Randall on it or whoever, and they're looking over biographical information, your school information, the courses you're taking, your 10 extracurricular activities, and then finally taking a look at that personal statement. So by the time they make it to that essay, they already know quite a bit about you. And so the role of this essay is really to provide admissions officers a lens into who you are and what you've experienced in a way that they wouldn't have been able to know unless you told them about it in your essay. So I really encourage y'all not to think about it as just rehashing your resume, but about going a little deeper, really reflecting on what your high school experience has been like. One of my favorite kind of sort of difficult brainstorming questions that I like to throw at students is really comparing who you are now as you're embarking on your senior year and who you were going into your freshman year. What are some of the things that are different about you now? And really think about the experiences that you've had that really helped shape you into the person that you are today versus who you were 4 years ago. Those are the kinds of things that can really help admissions officers who aren't going to get to know you through an interview, what you're like, how you'll contribute to a campus, what your values are. And those are the things that make for an effective college essay. So A&M also has a number of short answer essays for students who are not in the engineering program. They ask you to write 2 250-word essays. The first is asking you to share about a person who has impacted you. Remember, this is not you writing the biography of a person who has impacted you, but rather extracting how this person has impacted your life and reflecting on how your life has been different because of your relationship to this person. And then really thinking about how what you've learned from this person is going to be something you carry forward with you onto that A&M campus.
And as a bonus in those short answers, it's always great to share specific ways that this thing about this, say, for example, that someone in your life really taught you the value of integrity. And then at A&M, that's going to be something that you're so passionate about that you join the student council so that you can make sure that all students uphold the honor code. Or more important, what are other ways that you will actively engage? You can we even recommend listing specific student organizations where you see yourself contributing this specific skill, talent, or unique perspective so that A&M really understands how actively you will engage in their school.
Exactly. The second short answer question is, a little bit similar. It's asking you to reflect on a life event that you feel has prepared you to be successful in college. So they're really looking at you to signal to them that you've developed the study skills, the social skills, the community building skills that will help you thrive on their campus. I always recommend, as Allison said, to take a look at A&M's core values. It's a very values and tradition-driven university. So any link you can make between yourself and your own values to what the university believes, it's always an excellent way of showing how you're going to contribute to that campus and be successful while you're on it. And as another reminder, the third short answer essay is for those engineering students. It's asking you to reflect on your experience as a student, what has helped you understand your interest in engineering, and reflect on how your high school experience has, it sparked that interest in engineering.
And as a bonus, if you happen to be applying to A&M and UT Austin, the engineering essay that you write for A&M can also help you in the major essay for UT or vice versa, since they are very similar. As a Longhorn, I will recommend that you make sure you remove anything about A&M in your UT essay and vice versa, so that the schools aren't receiving that in their essay. All right, so submitting that application. Now, I am delighted to be able to say that the Texas A&M now uses the Common Application, second year going. You can still apply with Apply Texas, absolutely, especially if you are Applying to other schools that only accept Apply Texas, definitely worth doing that. However, likely you'll be applying to common application schools, in which case you can find Texas A&M on the common application. One of the things about A&M that we know is that when we talked about demonstrated interest, one of the things that A&M really appears to like to see in students is students checking their AIS portal regularly. That's basically, once you submit your application, you basically get an account in what's called the Howdy portal. And that's where they actually track how often you visit that. And that can actually help your application. If you're one of those students that's kind of on the line for them, and then they see that you've been checking your portal every few days or every week, they can tell you really want to be an Aggie, and that could actually help you out. It's an easy thing to do, and it absolutely could make a difference. The other thing to note about the Texas A&M application is once you submit the application, you will also need to complete what's called a self-reported academic record, which is where you take all the information from your transcript and enter it into basically kind of a glorified Google form that goes straight to Texas A&M. In order to do this, you definitely will need a transcript from your school. It could be unofficial, or report cards from all 4 years. You will need to know the names of the classes you took and the grades that you got each semester, or if you're in trimesters, the grades that you got each trimester. You need to go to a separate website. And again, they make this clear in the application, but it's definitely not intuitive. So just know that there's a second step to that A&M application. You submit it via Apply Texas or via the Common App, and then you need to go complete the self-reported academic record at the website. It's a separate website. And then you need to link that application, link your self-reported academic record to your application. If you are doing this and it's confusing, because like I said, it's not exactly intuitive, the Texas A&M admission folks are really helpful. You can absolutely reach out to them. In addition, they have a whole YouTube channel of helpful videos that are literally question by question for your self-reported academic record. I use them regularly when I'm assisting students. They are really handy. And so, but again, if you have any questions, you can reach out to the admissions folks at A&M. Anything to add, Laura?
Yes, so it might sound like the SRAR, the SRAR, is an easy and streamlined process, and it can be, but it also isn't always. And so I highly, highly recommend setting aside ample time. Don't leave it till the last minute, because it's a very kind of ancient looking interface on the website. It's not nice to look at. You have to dig up a lot of paperwork to get it done. It can be a little frustrating, a little hard to understand, and you might end up having questions that you need to direct to your school counselor to really make sure you're filling it out quickly and effectively. A&M will not consider your application complete. Therefore, they will not begin reviewing it until that SRAR is completed and linked to that application. And so it's imperative that you set aside multiple days, honestly, I think multiple days, to make sure that you get that SRAR filled out correctly, and that you allow enough time to link it to your application, and you leave enough room, just a little bit of padding, to make sure that you have time to reach out for questions. You never want to be in a position where you're running up against a deadline, or you've heard that Mays Business School is filling up, but the SRAR is giving you trouble. So make sure you get your transcript or your report cards in hand so that you can tediously and painstakingly and correctly copy the information from that transcript onto the SRAR. And after you've done this, you might even find that other colleges you're applying to are using that SRAR. It's very common for large public universities like Penn State, Michigan State to use SRARs because of the volume of applications that they receive. That processing transcripts can get a little bit tricky. You can even start your SRAR before you submit that application. So if any of you are Aggie or bust, it might be a great idea after this webinar to make your SRAR account, click around on it, check it out, and test the water to make sure that you have it all under control.
So seeing the slide with, as we referred to her when I was in Aggie-Land, Miss Reveille, ma'am, and I can remember a class that Lisa and I were in where Reveille was actually in the classroom with us. This slide historically has said we're at the question period, and we've had some great questions. But what we want to make sure is before we wrap up this evening's webinar, we give you plenty of time. If you have questions about any of the requirements at A&M, about any of the mechanics of A&M, about how A&M is going to read a student's application. We do this webinar, frankly, early in August, because while Delara mentioned the sort of urban myth, I really have to get my application in at 12:01 a.m. on April 1st. That is not a myth, okay? I mean, that is a myth.
It's a myth.
What isn't a myth is that A&M reads early. Melissa has a question. Allison, when does A&M require the official transcript?
When you
Good,
when you choose to enroll on campus, they will request that transcript to verify that everything you put on the SRAR is correct.
And we have a great.
Go ahead.
A great question about letters of recommendation. Another like wonderful technology moment at Texas A&M. This year, students will be able to use their AIS portal to upload those letters of recommendation. So once you apply, you'll receive an email that says, "Thank you for applying. Here's the link to set up your AIS portal." Once you do that, there's all sorts of great stuff you can do there, including add in those letters of recommendation.
Delara, I think there was a question around the number of students that are admitted or not admitted to engineering or computer science, and I'm going to tackle that one. A&M, like so many other public and private universities in the United States, is not forthcoming in major specific admissions information. They are very direct that majors like business and architecture and nursing are impacted, that they are majors that can be very challenging, and that they oftentimes do not have enough spaces for even the most qualified students. But A&M is not in the practice of saying what the specific different admit rate is by major or even by specialization within major.
And Zach, oh, sorry, go ahead, Bob.
Go ahead, no.
There was a piece of the recommendation question that I didn't answer, which is how many recommendations do you need for the College of Engineering? A&M will read the first 2 recommendations that are submitted as part of your admissions file. And a fun fact fact about about Reveille, sorry, not resumes. A fun fact about Reveille that we learned when Delara and I and some colleagues actually toured A&M earlier this spring was that, and Bob, tell us if it's true, there's a legend that if Reveille barks in class, because she goes to class, if Reveille barks in class, the class is dismissed.
Wow, I do not remember that one, but I'm sure there is some college admissions paraphrasing of Reveille barking and class and that kind of stuff. Kelly McCarthy says it's true. It's true.
Oh,
she's
perfect.
Kelly might be a good ag. I'm not quite as good at ag as clearly Kelly is. There you go. I almost, for those of you that are Aggies, I almost thought about starting the webinar by saying, I've got a story for you, Ags. And that would really only make sense if you are a person that went to A&M. There's a question here that I think Delara is answering. She just answered great. Do they need the expanded resume for A&M like UT recommends?
They don't require an expanded resume. However, if you have one already for UT, you can go ahead and send it to them, especially, and I think the pro tip about any resume that you send to A&M, if you are applying to one of those highly competitive majors, make sure all of the activities and experiences you've had related to that major are at the tippy top of that resume. Make it real easy for them to see what a great fit you are for your major of choice.
Great.
And yes, SAT scores are sent through the College Board website, and really can't say it often enough. Go ahead and send those early. If you're done testing, the pieces of the application don't actually have to go in order, right? So let's say if you're done testing, you know you're applying to A&M, you know you're going to submit a test score, you could go and submit it. Your application can follow, your rec letters can follow, your resume can follow. It can take several weeks for those test scores to be processed. So definitely, if you're ready, go ahead and send them.
Well, we have just so enjoyed being with y'all this evening. Like I said, we'll be sharing these materials in the follow-up note. We even have a blog post. How do they connect the application? Oh, I can handle that technically. A student's social security number is used to match the unique identifier for an application at any college or university. So I always say to students, the first thing you send them effectively opens your application file at that school. Anna Finger, wow. Gosh, first off, Mays does not say and does not publish the percentage of their admitted class that submitted versus didn't submit.
Test scores.
Test scores. Great student, great grades, wonderful activities in their major of interest. You know, I think what I would say, and Allison, I think, was very smart in saying this way, is that A&M is a holistic school that emphasizes academic profile. And what we mean by that, honestly, is that they're not Georgia or Georgia Tech, where they've gone back to requiring test scores, but A&M would prefer to see your test scores. Now, does that mean that for Anna, it means there's just no way you're getting into Mays without that test score? No, absolutely not. We had students we worked with last year who had great stories to tell, strong academic profiles, and they're at Mays and loving it. But it is to say that is an aspect of A&M, and particularly with a major like Mays, that is something to be aware of.
And as students are considering, do I submit my test score or not? Definitely look up the freshman profile to see what the test score range is. They'll give you the middle 50%, of the test scores for their applicant pool from their freshman class. If your score is in the middle of the middle 50%, and definitely if it's towards the top of that middle 50% range, it is recommended that you send it.
Well, with that, we wish all of y'all a great evening, a great rest of the week, and we all wish all of you great success in your application to A&M, and I hope all of you, can you finish self-reporting portal 2 weeks after you apply? Is that a safe time, you think? Gosh, I don't know that we know the answer to that, Zach. That's a great question. One thing I would say is, I think that if you, Allison and Delora both mentioned this, the Aggie admissions department is exactly as friendly and as caring and supportive as you would think. So they are always there with a howdy and an answer to your question. We'd suggest you reach out to them. Thanks everybody for being with us this evening. We wish you great luck and let us know how we can help.